That's very true, but I think LG have the opportunity also to go to 5th if they find the 2-0 victory against Splyce in this next set, but not going to be an easy task.
Tall task, absolutely, Anatoly. Splyce, we heard Ryan actually earlier say that he thought Splyce is the second best team on North American soil. Space Station Gaming have had some struggles, so Splyce here, up and comers, and right now they look very, very strong. Big Divios over here in the solo lane has been very impressive. He's got a very wide and eclectic god pool, plays a lot of the oddball stuff. Cyno, quite the opposite. He kind of just plays the Arlong Shen, but I mean, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. He's right here, and he's doing his thing. You know, it's become a little bit of a meme that this is all he plays, but kind of what I say about new players, prove that you can beat it.
That's true. And sometimes people actually ban it against him just to make sure that he has to play something else. It's either the Erlang Shen or the Naja with some of the changes to Naja. Might not see it necessarily. He likes his Habwa as well in the jungle, likes his different styles. CycloneSpin can mix it up with the best of them, going for the Shibalanke at times. And that's the combination that I'm looking for. How CycloneSpin can really start influencing some of these team fights, whether it's the X-Ball or otherwise.
CycloneSpin has been a hunter for just this year, essentially. And I talked about it on the broadcast the other day, Anatoly. For me, what felt like was happening at the beginning of Cyclone's hunter position play was he was able to go ahead and just play the hunter characters. He was in the long lane, but he felt like a solo laner that was bringing out these hunters. And for me, it really wasn't, win or lose, good or bad, the performance wasn't truly that carry role. Now, I think towards the end of the summer split and in the fall split, we've seen actually the transition where he's now a proper hunter player, a proper carry player in that dual lane. He's a dual lane performer. Because of that, I think we see Trifecta, or excuse me, Splyce, see better results. I think he's truly playing his position.
Well, LG are going to have to worry about CycloneSpin and his lane partner, Aror. I think LG in the dual lane has the potential here. Clout has made a little bit of a noise from time to time. Kiki even piloting some other hunters for himself in that solo lane, which is not too common for other teams to do. They usually like to stick it in the other lanes, but it's actually the Morrigan.
Yeah, Kiki definitely likes to play some of the oddball stuff for sure. Kiki very, very strong in his own right. Luminosity Gaming have had some struggles, but I maintain that this is a team that will continue to surprise players and people. You've got a fantastic jungler in Weekend who I think really can do it. Geno has absolutely flourished into being a strong solo lane, or a strong support, excuse me. Kiki is very hot or cold and can be inconsistent, but when he's on, he is absolutely on, and I really have never had a complaint about Clout outside of his name change.
We miss you, Vedium.
Yeah, no, I miss Vedium. On the real though, jokes aside, whatever the hell his name is, Connor has absolutely looked fantastic in the hunter role all season, and it's been a shining light for LG. Will it be enough to take the game? Let's find out. P's and B's, pretty please, as we take a look at Splyce taking on LG.
Chernobog should be honestly the hottest pick between these two teams, knowing how aggressive CycloneSpin and Clout are looking for those little nuanced advantages in the laning phase.
Splyce right now with the first option, looking for the first pick and the first ban. You say that Chernobog is going to be highly contested. Yes. I want to see him banned out.
I can see it being banned out from Luminosity, but I think Splyce are definitely going to leave it open.
For sure. I think we'll see some of the Morrigan ban, and we absolutely will. LG really liked that selection, both mid lane, solo, a lot of different players really enjoy that one.
Absolutely.
So take the Changeling out of here, and LG will go for the Chernobog ban right off the bat. No
surprise. I think Freya should be the next ban for LG. Don't want to deal with the magical damage out of whoever is going to pilot it out of Splyce, whether it's going to be moswal or whether it's also going to be CycloneSpin. So Pele not opted for Splyce on that first pick, just rather ban it away.
I like that choice here. Splyce not really falling into the new god trap. Sometimes when new characters come out, usually the first week they're not very successful, whether or not it's a good character or not. Achilles came out and had his time in the sun, but wasn't great that first week. Baron is a staple of the meta right now, wasn't really strong that first week. Pele's really strong in her first week, but Splyce not rolling the dice here, so I respect it, and they'll go with the Athena pick.
At least in North America, it's going to be that hot pick. In Europe, I don't think Rival had the most success with it, unfortunately. But now transitioning into this set, Athena is going to be that first selection. I like it because Aror has plenty of setup. If they wanted to also flex that for Divios, that's an option for them. So taking the Serqet now for Weekend.
Ram and Serqet are going to be up for LG. Weekend likely going to be piloting the Serqet. Izanami and Puch, though, for Splyce. Puch, one of the oddball picks that has now become just a good pick in the middle lane. Less oddball, more traditional. Whereas Izanami, still certainly very, very strange. CycloneSpin, very adept at the Undead Hunter. But also, I think she's chosen primarily for the lane pressure.
Absolutely, and that's something that CycloneSpin wants to do. Find any little advantage in the 1v1, and with the attack speed steroid that she has, being able to switch from the boomerang effect to a single target gives her that potential to start winning those trades.
LG's middle laner will go with the Kukulkan, though. A very, very flavorful pick, honestly. What's your take on the Wiggle Bomb?
It's all about the burst damage. If you can find the kill as soon as possible during last breath, then all of a sudden that's going to spread every which way, and LG could start, waterfalling some of these team fights.
Certainly a look. Second round of bans coming out. Splyce say no to some Guardians, and LG, they're looking directly in the jungle. No Cyno, no Arlong Shen, but that's essentially just Cyno. And then no Robin for Cyno either. Two of his best picks, which does leave NotGeno with the Fafnir selection on LG. So Splyce, they've got to choose for their jungler, and they've got to choose for their solo laner. We'll see where they
I like to see a rat. I like to see a Ratatasker here if that's going to be the case, but NotGeno instead. Good amount of jungle teamfight presence between the Puch, NotGeno. These little 2v2 skirmishes can favor either which way, honestly, as long as that LG can land some of these tornadoes at the proper locations. They could control it, but if Splyce avoid it, then they should be able to just go for round 2.
Looks like the Artio is going to be the selection for Divios over there on the short side. NotGeno in the jungle, which was Cyno's go-to character before the Arlong Shen kind of hit it.
I still don't know who's going to be in that solo lane. It could be Athena, could be Artio.
That's very fair.
It's still not up and sealed. Nike, though, probably going to go in that solo lane for sure.
Yeah, Nike is the last pick for LG. We'll see where she winds up. Let us know who you think is going to win. LG right now, you've got a very interesting god pool. Kukulkan, Nike, characters we really don't see all that often, but very strong characters, I think. Kukulkan, less selected, perhaps easily killable, but the area control, the area denial that he provides, very, very high. And Nike, when it comes to those goals, the passive, as well as her just being nearly unkillable, I think it's a good look, Tully.
I think if LG can manage to get some of those halos online from Nike, they should start winning the team fights, but Splyce's composition has more control. I like the Artio Athena between Divios and also Aror, no matter who pilots either of those two.
Gonna be exciting. Splyce and Luminosity coming at you. Ready, set, go.
Time for game 1 between these teams. Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Anatoly Finch and Aggro here on the call. Splyce, a team starting to have a claim, I feel like, towards that number 2 spot.
Yep.
Can they get that done here up against this Kukulkan and the Nike, 2 picks you don't see a ton of?
Luminosity definitely needed to switch something up because what they've been doing recently hasn't been working. So new picks is one way to do it. I do think that Splyce is getting very close to that second best team, and a lot of it is because of the struggles of Space Station. Hold on, a bit of a boxing fight here on this left-hand side. Geno and Clout aren't going to beat Izanami very easily. As
No.
Geno's sprint's already down. There's the horrific from Aror.
I appreciate their optimism here, as Aror does end up taking some poke, but I mean, it's hard to out-trade and out-clear an Izanami,
Clout's
and yeah,
dead.
they're going to pay for it. They're going to die. Aurora finds first blood, and now Geno in some trouble. Where's he going to go?
If Aror got his dash up soon, then this is probably just second blood. Slowed. One more auto
hammer.
from Izanami should do it, but it was going to cost 2 or 3, and Geno on the mark with that hammer. Geno's sprint just too early there. He uses it as a way to disengage by how far up Clout and he were pushed up, but with a horrific emblem for Aurora, you have to be saving sprint for horrific, or else you're going to end up either dying or losing the lane, or both in this case.
Unfortunate gift, I feel like, to the dual lane of Splyce early on to take that aggression, and now CycloneSpin and Aurora are the ones that are out in front. They'll be able to rather easily strip away not only their own purple buff, but the enemy one in a lane where they would have probably had lane dominance anyway. They just got there even sooner.
That's true. It does definitely lend. This lane is all about out-clearing and out-poking, and that's why you see Athena solo instead of Artio solo. With this sort of matchup, it means that Artio is pushing the wave a lot more easily. She's able to contest you and fight you in lane much better than the Athena could. But the level 1 clear is pretty good for Ram. I mean, it's probably the best level 1 clear outside of any hunter besides Izanami, but that's Izanami on the other side. So it definitely felt a bit arrogant for Luminosity to try and out-clear there. Just knowing that Aror is body blocking that hammer, because Aror is a veteran player and knows how to play the lane against a Fafnir, you're never out-clearing in that spot.
But I'm talking about relative gain to that, right? Let's say that they do get the clear advantage there. I mean, will they get enough lane pressure even as a result for it to matter? What are they looking for on the back end of it when almost certainly when they come back, Aurora and CycloneSpin are going to take it away anyway?
They're looking for the ability to go and invade purple, but not get the buff itself, but just get the minis
like
away
the
from
smalls,
purple,
yeah.
and that lets you hit level 2 off the next wave. That's the idea. Ram is usually going to be the first hunter to hit 2, and that makes it a little bit easier for him to do well in that lane and be aggressive. When normally you think of Ram as that late game option, his first 2 waves are really good because of his astral arrows,
right.
But then it starts to dissipate pretty quickly. If he's got access to all 5 astral arrows, then he'll clear the wave super quick, but it costs him a decent amount of mana, and then his fight potential isn't great.
And he's got to often be right there kind of in the wave, taking a lot of damage off in return too, so it's tough. And that's sort of what I meant. I mean, yes, there is value to it, but especially once it got that close, I just don't know if it was worth still committing at that point,
yes.
Even if they get it right, because they wouldn't have gotten that much off the back end anyway. So unfortunately for Geno and Clout, it doesn't go their way. Their purple buff is now taken for the 2nd time, and Aurora and CycloneSpin can come down and grab their own, not split any farm of that with the mid. Looks like that's been taken away by Cyno moswal, but the buff itself going to CycloneSpin.
Now, I was grabbing a drink during the picks and bans, but if what I saw just before we went live is true, Cyno got Naja in the 2nd half of this draft. Is that correct?
Feels
Splyce,
good, doesn't it?
Splyce got the first pick Athena, then Izanami Opwash. The Izanami pick seems awfully early to me, especially when Naja is on the table for you. Cyno is the best Naja player in the league right now, and Naja is still, even despite the nerfs, one of the best competitive junglers that you can have access to. And it's crazy to me that they don't pick it in the top 3, first and foremost. But secondly, when they don't pick it in top 3, they still get a chance to get it in the bottom 2. The Luminosity definitely might end up paying for that in this game, because Cyno is going to make some plays on this selection. And it's not a matter of if, but a matter of when.
Well, no, guys, that he just looks that much better on. And Splyce have a couple of those. The other one that comes to my mind is this Izanami. I'm wondering if the difference between CycloneSpin on this pick and him on a lot of other stuff is worth it. Sometimes someone is so good on it that you ban it away, but I'm wondering if there is a shallowness to the pool that justifies taking this Izanami away. He's very comfortable on it.
Since Cyclone, moved to ADC during this Season 5, it's been consistently, I play these 2 gods. You know, it's been a rotation of those gods, but it has been a hard and fast, this is what we pick. We'll pick it early. It doesn't matter. We feel like we can win as long as we get these selections. And Izanami is just kind of the latest in that trend. I do think that there's a little bit more to the god pool there for Cyclone than just Izanami, but they clearly feel like it is good enough to warrant picking it this early on.
Well, a big rotation from LG this time, Ryan. They don't want to let the purple buff be taken for free. Weaken comes on the backside, but Sash controls him. Half HP, he's got to retreat. Good Kukulkan to try and zone, but CycloneSpin finds an ultimate of his own. Everyone retreats, and now purple buff goes the way of Splyce.
That was a really big Izanami ult. It actually got beads away. No, Weaken's beads were forced by the Sash earlier on. Sprint was used by Geno without the use of Horrific Emblem, so if Aror and Splyce know about that, that is kill potential here in the duo lane for Cyclone and Aror, but good job by Splyce to not overcommit to that engagement. They don't chase with Cyno's ultimate, they don't pop the Horrific and Aror dash after them. It was very, we'll take it if they give it to us, and we'll expend a Dark Portal, sure, it's one of the lower impact ultimates that they have available to them at that point, so just take the buff where you can, and that's the measured decision-making from Splyce. It has definitely improved during the fall split of Season 5.
It's not a word I would have used for them ever, I think, right? Is unafraid to take the fight or not willing to all in. They very often are, and we'll just see, you know, where the dice fall, but not this time. They recognize that they've got this advantage in dual lane, and they're trying to press it. They've been consistently giving CycloneSpin this red buff over moswal, and that's fine. Puch is clearing the lane just fine anyway because he's Puch. But they definitely want CycloneSpin to be as far ahead of Clout as they can get.
And he's going to stay ahead just because he clears faster than Clout. But it does give you 1v1 kill potential pretty easily whenever you have access to red buff, especially as a hunter like Izanami, who clears very well, but also pokes very well.
Yeah.
Having spectral projection be able to just be the poke tool and not the clear tool is really one of Izanami's greatest strengths. And it's a very strong slow once you get it stacked up. Does take a little bit. If you recall, it's part of her passive almost, where she needs to get assists or kills on a target that's been hit by spectral projection in order to increase that slow. Cyclone's already got one down, and as he continues, that will be stronger and stronger as the game goes on. I think it caps up at 40%, which is a pretty crazy slow for a hunter to have.
I really do wonder if Izanami wouldn't just be the best hunter in the game if that dash was like safer. If she just was a bit safer with the way that she gets away on the dash. Maybe, man. Her steroid is so strong off that first ability. I mean, she's able to kind of bridge the gap between auto attack and ability-based hunter too. If she was just a little bit safer, man, if that dash was so punishable, I mean, you might be picking her every game.
I think you would be, because what's her other weakness? Like her
nothing, right?
Her early game's phenomenal. She clears faster than anybody because she doesn't use any mana, and every auto attack pierces. She boxes very well because Sickle Strike is an insane steroid. You already touched on that.
It's ludicrous.
Yeah. Her 2 is good. Her ultimate is great for a hunter. The only weakness is the dash, and I think it's a cool sort of dynamic to have where a lot of characters are bad early or bad late. Izanami's good all the time. It's just he has one ability that you need to really... It's not a bad ability. It's just a different ability. I think that's a key distinction to make.
It is not for retreating.
No, it is for the Morrigan-style gameplay. It is to get into the back line and try and be the aggressor, and it's only a matter of time until we see Bumba's Frostbound Hammer Izanami, right? Where you just zoom around in stealth and then slow everyone.
I really do think there is some value into maybe looking at some different ways to play this Izanami pick, because I know one of her weaknesses is that she can be kind of vulnerable, but there's a ton of upside there if maybe they can find some other ways to try and capitalize on her. So, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if we see some more focus there as CycloneSpin kind of showing what she can do even in that hunter role.
I wonder how good jungle Izanami would be.
I imagine her clear is not that bad.
Clear's probably not that bad. Her gank potential is really good if you use the stealth as the engagement tool.
Right.
I don't know.
Has that silence.
Is it better than like Uller on her jungle though? If you're putting in a hunter in the jungle.
Yes, because even if she comes out even with them, then you have an Izanami late, and you're like, yeah.
That's true. Both of those hunters are definitely more mid game focused, so I think it does bring you way more in the late game.
So I think, yeah, that could certainly be some upside there to that Izanami.
I was about to say, someone get Cherio on the line, but he doesn't even play jungle anymore.
That's right. He's over in the support role. I guess he was technically supporting anyway, just from the jungle, so now he's just kind of in the role that makes a little bit more sense for him, but we'll see how it works. Just things have slowed down a bit here, Ryan, in this game. Splyce, we talked about this already, trying to see if they can earn that second place spot and try and avoid the placement stages altogether, an option that probably you wouldn't have thought was there for them until Space Station started looking a little bit weaker here in the fall split. We'll see if they can kind of get back on the reins, but Splyce have a chance at that now. And for what it's worth, I think moswal has really started to catch back up. I was kind of worried that he might be sort of a problem for this Splyce roster, but I don't think he has been. When he's playing these immobile mages, kind of like Prime and EU, he really can turn things around for this team.
It's very easy to look at the first few performances for moswal and say, no, he's not ready. But I really think that Splyce did a good job of sticking with him, of trusting their own gut, especially whenever moswal wasn't able to be there for a set and they brought back Best, and Best played very well. And they said, okay, cool, thanks, see you later anyways. I think that showed a lot of faith in moswal, and I think moswal's definitely repaid that with how he's played as of late. I'm excited to see the future of this Splyce roster. I do think they're continuing to get better, and that's why I think that, that's what I said earlier, they've got a lot of potential to be the second best team in North America right now. I really feel like they are right there because Splyce has played better and Space Station has played worse.
Right.
And if you just look at Summer, Splyce was very close to surpassing Space Station in the standings, and they only got better since then, and Space Station has gotten worse. So I really feel like Splyce has got a really good chance to get an auto bid into HRX. And can you imagine saying that after Spring Split where they went, what, 1 in whatever, however many games? It was insane how rough their spring was, but
absolutely not.
They've looked so much better since.
And it's crazy, too. I mean, NA, it's so difficult to predict where it's going to go. We just saw CLG, who I think long thought was that third-place team, right there with a chance to break into that top 2 with all the talent they have, but they haven't been on the rise up to that level. Trifecta's been struggling a bit after their swap. LG, I think, are struggling as well, kind of the bottom team right now, and they've been there all along. It's wide open, really, it feels like, for Splyce, and as long as they can consistently perform, they can be there. And usually it's on the back of early aggression is what is kind of surprising me about this game from them, right? They play so aggressive, they dive so past beyond you, they kind of snowball out of control. But right now they're playing measured, they're playing even, and they're just going to try and beat you straight up.
They're set against Space Station. That game 2 went pretty late, 30, 40 minutes in, and they were able to pull that one out. So they're definitely getting more comfortable at this stage of the game, and that's the sign of a good team that's continuing to improve. Check out CycloneSpin. He actually goes for the Bloodforge. I think he's been doing this a lot recently on Hunters, and it has to do, I'd imagine, with the way that Izanami, because of her unique basic attacks, Devourer's Gauntlets get a little bit worse because if you only hit the front end, whereas a normal Hunter, if you hit your auto attack, you deal 100 damage, you've got 20% lifesteal, you get 20 health back. Whereas Izanami is doing a percentage of that, so she only gets a percentage of the lifesteal, so you kind of need that instant burst damage that Bloodforge provides to you a lot of the time. It also makes her abilities hit even harder. Dark Portal is a big AoE, well, at least by Hunter standards, it's a pretty big AoE ability. It's got 100% physical scaling, by the way, so it's pretty good. Her 90% physical power scaling. So you're hitting really hard with this Bloodforge.
And this is what that steroid can do. His Gold Fury is already very low. Ultimate dropped a little early, but doesn't matter. Splyce grab it as only Geno was nearby. That's the Gold Fury over to the team we're saying could potentially be second. But now Kiki's here and rather tanky on this Nike. moswal drops the ultimate. Last breath is there, so he certainly will die. And Weekend looks like just barely makes it out.
But Cyclone's been backed right in front of where Weekend was walking. No wards on that bottom left side for Splyce, and so Weekend's able to get out of there. 1 for 0. Splyce gets gold. They sacrifice moswal. Well worth it. Nothing personal for moswal, but Gold Fury going for your entire team makes that definitely worth the pickup. Now, Pyromancer pull could make this interesting from Luminosity.
Cyno's here. Ringbound's going to do some more. Ultimate comes through from ShadowChair, so LG will indeed secure the objective. But can Divios find a way to punish anyone on the back end? Cyno and Aror are here. Looks like LG have disengaged. We're just going to look for the strip on the farm on the back end. So that does mean a very nice answer back from LG. With the kill and with Pyro, that's not nearly as bad as it could have been.
But still a pretty sizable lead for Splyce at this point in the game. And it's just been a consistent rise. There weren't really any that many objectives or anything like that taken before that Gold Fury. Sure, that little spike is from gold, but other than that, it's just this dual lane in particular from Splyce, who got off to a big lead. It's been invades on the red, on the purple, and consistently keeping pressure onto Geno and Clout, which is an interesting style to go against Luminosity because throughout this season, for my money, it's been the dual lane for LG that's been close enough.
That has been their most consistent factor, I think that's safe to say, as the big Sentinel Aziz from Kiki puts him right back up to half. Thought he was low for a moment, didn't you? Well, he's going to make it out of there with no trouble at all, but maybe not his blue buff, as Geno can't defend up against 3. A successful steal, and that's what's been the difference, right? It's been on the duo side for the most part, but these buff invades consistently and forcing people back have been pretty key.
They absolutely have been, and I like what Splyce is doing, where you get one side of lead. Okay, they've got it, and now I trust my players on that side of the map to maintain that lead. I'm going to rotate over and now take that lead elsewhere. And take a look at the build from Aror. Splyce is always good for building something a little bit differently. Aror goes for Mystical Mail as a support, something that we don't see very often at all. Now his goal is playing Artio in general is to be that frontline presence that can peel when necessary, but Aurora would like to do as little peeling as possible.
Yeah, my man wants to dive.
He wants to dive, and he wants to deal damage, and he wants to be a really annoying factor for the backline of Luminosity. It's just so expensive. Now, he kind of counteracts it by going for Oni Hunter's Garb first, because that's so cheap that if you average out these 2 items, you know, Aurora is 3 items deep, and he spent whatever it is, 4,300 gold, just a random number. Then you're like, oh, okay, that's fine. He built one item that was 2150 and another item that was 2150. Like, we're good. But it's really that he spent very little on one and a lot on the other. but it doesn't slow down his build that much because of that. And don't forget, Mystical Mail also did get crowd control reduction recently, so it's not quite as pure offensive as it was.
Yeah, this is what we were talking about, by the way.
Yeah,
that's what Aror wants to be doing. As Divios is right there with him, I imagine it was Defender of Olympus that confirms that kill. Weekend is going to jump in, but it's the tanks back there. I don't know if those are the best targets to be looking for, and Divios makes it out.
A little bit off the mark there with CycloneSpin with the ultimate. That might make this harder for Splyce, though Cyno is doing his part, his Windfire wheels, and Divios able to bring down Geno. moswal putting out great damage, but Clout is the one to bring down Cyno, and Weekend has escaped at very low HP.
But what about Clout? He's going to need a little bit of help on the back end. Divios just barely doesn't have enough, but the taunt there, moswal over the wall, will eventually put him down. This is a tier 2 dive. It's not that early on in the game, and they're able to make it work. Aror finds Kiki, 3 kills for LG, punishing Splyce in their own jungle, or LG in their own jungle.
That was tough there for Luminosity, and honestly, that could have gone even smoother for Splyce because Cyclone was trying to lay the Dark Portal right at the feet of Geno as he stopped that transformation as moswal gets picked for lazy backing. But a good fight by Splyce regardless. Cyno did a great job of dealing damage throughout and staying difficult to lock down. Cyno had a really good ultimate in that fight, not just because it took Geno out of the fight a little bit, but it took Cyno out of the fight. It was right as everyone from Luminosity was beginning to collapse onto the Naja. Cyno buys himself a long period of time by using Windfire wheels, and that allows the rest of Splyce to surge forward. But you're right, it all starts because Aror has Mystical Mail and chases down ShadowChair and kills him with Divios, and they do 1 million damage together.
Aror, just being Aror, man, that's how he's going to play, and it is what this Splyce team wants from him, able to set them up into a good spot now for this next Gold Fury, which has just respawned on the map. Now, for what it's worth, they have this Kukulkan. It's great confirm, or even to strip away an objective potentially, if it does get started up, but is he going to be able to get close enough where that's going to be relevant with Aror diving, or will it be burst away before they can get there is the real question.
Especially with his purification beads down for 30+ seconds, Divios is definitely going to know that cooldown, and it only takes an Athena taunt into a Naja ultimate to really kill him from here. moswal's got so much follow-up damage from the Naja that no other ultimate would really be necessary to kill ShadowChair at this point. Though Book of the Dead will help him quite a bit. That gives you a health shield equivalent to a percentage of your mana. Maximum mana, not current mana like it used to be. So it really works well with Kukulkan because he wants to build it because it gives him mana, and mana translates into power while playing that god. That's part of Kukulkan's passive, and it's a pretty good one.
That's a good point. The current popular mage build path really does synergize with Kukulkan really well right now. And Kukulkan's not bad in Phoenix sieges or defenses, which is more important lately. So maybe some value there as Gold Fury being bursted down, shredded by CycloneSpin. Ultimate comes through. They just reset. Splyce, then pull it back and confirm the objective. Geno going to transform in the middle of everyone. Weekend will find one Cobra's Kiss, but now he's stuck inside the crypts as they're emptied by moswal. Splyce grabbed the objective, and now they surge for the fight.
ShadowChair's Book of the Dead passive already down. Here comes Divios. Bees were back up for ShadowChair's. Kiki is keeping 3 busy by himself on this backside, and he's still okay.
That's one thing you can say about Nike. She feels unkillable, but now rooted without the Sentinel of Zeus, locked down by that cripple field. It's going to get harder and harder for him to make it away. Geno comes in with the shell, but Kiki's certainly dead to rights. Cyno finds that. Now Geno's got to make his way out of there, and another objective for Splyce.
That was really close to being a great play from Luminosity to steal that Gold Fury, namely the ultimate from Geno, or the jump in rather from Geno to try and keep the Gold Fury leashed in position from where that Kukulkan ultimate was coming from. That was a great reset by Splyce, but almost was able to pull it off there for Luminosity, just not quite. They expended so many resources that they couldn't stop it, the fight from going against them either.
Now Fire Giant going to be Splyce's. Great recognition from them that the game has kind of reached that point where they only need a little while to burn it down. I was questioning the Tier 2 tower dive early on because I guess the pace of the game had lulled me into thinking it was still too early, but it was 17 minutes for that. It's 20 minutes now, or 21 rather. They can take this Fire Giant, they could dive that tower, and now Splyce are firmly in control with an 8,000 gold lead and the Fire Giant. That's really with only one Tier 1 tower coming down. There's plenty more gold to farm.
This is becoming very difficult for Luminosity very, very quickly. Like we said, it's been gradual, it's been buff invades, but as soon as Splyce starts to smell blood in the water, they attack, and they go for the objectives to get the bigger gold. And
They get the Gold Fury. Now they get Fire Giant. They get Pyromancer. And there's a lot of gold left on the map. That might be the scariest part now for Luminosity, is that this gold lead hasn't really come from towers yet, but it will. I mean, that is a lot. 500 plus another 500 for the two tier 1 towers, then 4,500 for all 3 tier 2s put together. You're looking at 5,500 gold.
Yes.
That's just kind of waiting for Splyce to take it. And once they do, that gold lead goes from 8K to an insurmountable amount.
Aror going to force out Clout on the back end. Tier 1 tower already down. They should get this tier 2. But for my money, this is what peak Splyce looks like, right? It's a team that always has the potential to just be that aggressive dive, like 5-man monster that you can't defeat anyway, but also with some patience in there when they need it. This is when Splyce really gets scary, as moswal drops the ultimate. Phoenix already shredded very low. Geno going to transform into Draconic Corruption. Cyno going to ult him the second he's vulnerable. Phoenix still standing, but not Geno.
Oh, Cyno gets flattened by ShadowChair's ultimate as Cyclone goes down on the backside. Left side Phoenix still up and standing, and now with no ADC, Splyce is more worried about the kills. Aror gets bought some time by Divios, but still ultimately falls. It's only Divios and moswal still up.
And now some trouble for Divios. He does have the taunt. He can't go back through that Kukulkan tornado. moswal wants to try and support him here in the 2v3, but Clout going to come even those numbers out in just a moment. ShadowChair can't find the damage with either one of those abilities, so Splyce are still okay for now. It's a slow chase, but this should spell the end as Weekend joins.
moswal is just buying time now, using Corpse Explosion as a slow Aegis. Still up. moswal
Could follow up off that taunt a little bit, but not as much to save Divios, and it will be the most delayed deicide eventually.
It's curious that they use the Aegis there if they recognize there's no way they win the fight. Divios is running right back towards Geno, so he'll be there to try and control him. Clout now rolling back in on this one too. But Ryan, they commit, I feel like, too much on the Geno on the left side Phoenix, right?
Yes.
They don't focus enough on the actual structure to bring it down, and they end up losing the fight pretty heavily.
If Divios lives,
he's not going to live.
You're solo casting.
Yeah, he's not going to live.
Okay. All right, good. They got him. I agree with you. I think that the overcommit onto Geno is really what costs Splyce in that position. And normally we think of Naja as great setup for your team, where Naja is taking someone up into the sky,
right.
You know when they're coming down, and you can blow them up. But I love picking burst mages against Naja for that same reason, because he sets himself up. And ShadowChair took great advantage of that during that team fight, where he positions himself to guarantee a hit onto Cyno upon landing, and potentially hitting other people as well. I'm not sure that Spirit of the Nine Winds connected with anyone besides Cyno, but it doesn't really matter. As long as you kill Cyno instantly, that's a win for Luminosity, and that's what really started the fight off a little bit better for Luminosity, whereas it looked like Splyce was in a better position. Also, Kiki was frontlining flawlessly in front of CycloneSpin, trying to keep that Phoenix alive. That was really well done by Kiki. And even if they would have won that fight and lose left side Phoenix, Splyce walks away pretty happy from that. As it stands, though, Splyce needed a little bit more.
Weekend has a nice position on the backside of this fight. I don't know if they know he's here. Cobra's Kiss does find CycloneSpin, who drops the ultimate at his feet. He's very low, but
he's dead.
He is going to fall to that damage from Clout from the snipes up in the sky. It's a 5v4 in LG's favor. Big ultimate comes through, but doesn't find a ton.
Cyno did get poked down to half. Geno transforms with the focus onto Clout. Good peel coming out of Geno, but Kiki is the next to fall. Aror gets himself a double, and he could be looking for 3.
Yeah, Clout in some trouble. Divios, of course, going to be the one that finds that one in the back end. So they lose CycloneSpin, who they very much need right about now. But because they win the fight so handily, LG have to leave. The Gold Fury is Splyce's without any real contest. And one more time, a fight doesn't start off great for Splyce, ends up going their way.
Love the positioning from Weekend, love the idea, but Cyno does such a good job of keeping ShadowChair out of that fight. That's what Naja does. I mean, you have a great initiation, but if Cyno's able to just ring bounce into Windfire Wheels, a priority target, strip those prots, make him so he's basically doing true damage to you, then the fight goes from great to horrible very, very quickly. And Cyno makes a key play in taking ShadowChair out of the engagement. Aror continues to not be focused by Luminosity, and for good reason. He's a level 19 Artio already, but he's doing relevant damage in these team fights. I mean, he's done more than CycloneSpin so far this game. He's done more than Weekend so far this game. That Mystical Mail is really gotten value for Aror, and if you can get to this point with this build, it feels great. It's just most of the time teams won't let you get away with going something that expensive in your third item slot. But Aror played around it pretty nicely and is now left with a really good late game bruiser build. He's a solo laner now.
One more element in Splyce's favor to make life hard for LG, and they're not going to defend this Fire Giant either. And for what it's worth, their Phoenix defense last time was rather nice. They have the Kukulkan to fall back on, right? So, I mean, they can just try and give it one more try. But when I talked about peak Splyce early, where they have the aggression to fall back on, but they have that patience, they got to find that balance one more time, right? That time, they didn't have the clear calls on what they were focusing out. They got to have that here for the siege.
And remember, I said that there was over 5,000 gold left on the map for Splyce to take. Well, they attempted that Phoenix siege before they had really taken any of it. They had taken 2K out of the tier 2 and the tier 1 on left-hand side, but then they just continued to push instead of backing to spend the gold. Now they get some more gold. They get another Fire Giant. This one is enhanced, so it'll make it that much easier to kill the objectives. But now it seems like they might be willing to spend the gold before trying a Phoenix siege. And they've got plenty of time. There's no reason to rush this Fire Giant straight into a Phoenix siege. You can play it slow here.
They absolutely can, and they absolutely have that option to be able to do it. It looks like that's the call. They're not going to push in just yet and give this LG team a chance to get that defense set for them just yet. They've got to try and find a way to be a little more impatient, because even though LG have the Kukulkan, I mean, Splyce have the Puch. Puch can kind of just say, you can't stand here for a while, right? And kind of open that door for them too. So as long as they're using their tools correctly, they can dictate the pace of the siege just the same way. A lot of pressure on the new guy on the team, I feel like, to make sure they're getting the most out of that kit.
He's got a Magi's bubble, and on the other side, ShadowChair is working on his Magi's cloak. And I really like a Magi's in this game up against Splyce's composition in particular. Because
against Naja, yeah.
Up against Naja, usually it's, well, we need to have someone with Naja who can easily pop Magi's bubbles, and Athena can do that, but that is such a high-value CC.
Yes.
You're really looking for things like Geb knockup and Bologna Scourge to easily pop Magi's bubbles without a heavy commit, without putting yourself out of position, without using a long cooldown that's instrumental to your engagement. And all Splyce has to pop the bubble is key CCs. It's Sash. It's the Thenaton. As long as you don't get within melee range of Aror, he won't be able to pop it with his stun.
Divios does go forward and at least find one Magi's cloak. Aror blinks in as a weaken on the right-hand side, and they control two. Moswal will drop down the ultimate to buy some time for CycloneSpin, but Cyclone has to back up. He can't stay in range, and the Phoenix is still healthy.
Cyno could be in trouble, though. Clout's looking for some snipes, but only lands 1 out of 3. Back to the Phoenix siege we go, and finally it does go down. Clout's got to lose the beads because of the taunt from Divios.
Perfect
Dark
silence.
Portal did great work, but we get straight into the back.
He wants Moswal. That's the priority target. Even if it kills him, get that Opwash out of there. 1 for 1 as Divios makes the trade the other way. Kiki has expended the Thorns, but Divios has 2 inside the taunt. But there's just no follow-up. Even with the control, he's getting too much damage coming out the way from Geno, and he has to leave.
He's dead. Clout gonna roll forward, but now Clout is in a bad spot. No relics, no ult, and I don't know how much longer he's gonna be able to stick around. Cyclone repositions. Aror takes care of Clout, and Splyce takes care of Luminosity in game 1.
Now it's only ShadowChair to defend up against 3, and I just don't think he's got the tools to get it done. CycloneSpin still healthy and putting in damage onto the Titan. The Tornado's down, but Cyclone on the backside is able to comfortably get the damage in. Deicide coming out for Splyce, and they take game 1 over LG. It maybe slowed down a bit towards the end, but they look pretty good doing it.
It was the duo lane from Splyce that really just got off to a perfect start.
Early.
Very, very early. But it was even towards that last team fight. Aurora blinking in and keeping Weaken completely nullified during that fight was huge to allow Splyce to get positioning around that Phoenix. Now, eventually Aurora has to peel back. Weaken's able to blink in and get a great engagement on a Moswal. He spreads poison, but that's really all the damage that could be done for Luminosity. But imagine if he could have done that from the outset, before the Phoenix got very low. That really shows how valuable Aurora was in that team fight.
And it really felt more like they got Aurora ahead than Cyclone for my money in that one. I don't know how big the Izanami impact was beyond that laning phase, but Aurora was a nightmare for them to deal with. Really, he's the one that kind of got really far ahead and ended up being hard for them to deal with. Is that enough to earn your MVP vote? That's another discussion. I think you certainly could say so with the impact he had. Maybe Cyno as well in the Naja. I like what he was doing for them in that fight as well, but Aurora was a real nuisance.
Those would be my 2 votes, would be either Cyno or Aurora. I thought both of them played really well. And for what it's worth, we've been pretty critical of ShadowChair. In a losing effort, that might have been his best game yet. He had consistently good ultimates. Even during that last siege, he hits moswal and Cyno with the same Spirit of the Nine Winds. You can't ask for much more than that. There's a reason Kukulkan doesn't get picked very often. It's because that's the best performance, and it didn't do a whole lot anyways. Right. But I think ShadowChair does deserve at least a little bit of credit for how well he played.
Well, LG got to try and find something different to do in Game 2, or Splyce will take it just like that. Maybe there's some ideas over there on the desk. Either way, they'll give us their analysis from that game.
Thanks a lot, friends. Tom and Tully here, ready to break this super game down. And watching this one, a little bit troublesome, I think, for LG. Splyce here, though, it took them longer than I anticipated for them to get the win, but they do wind up game number 1, Splyce over LG.
It was all about the methodical calculation about using the control between Divios and Aror. Look at this, 6-2-8 on Aror. Divios not too far behind at 4-2-6 is Athena. The control from Splyce just heavily outweighing the control from LG. You got Nike on Kiki, Fafnir for Geno, Serqet for Weekend is nice for control, but without that real Guardian-like engagement, it's difficult to pop even the Mad Guy's cloak that was picked up by moswal. A fantastic selection, keeping himself alive for a majority of the game.
Yeah, I mean, Cyclone winds up with 0 kills, but he's got 9 assists. Ton of player damage as well. I think a big part of that is, how he was able to walk out with his teammates there. ShadowChair looks pretty good, and then on top of everything, Aror winds up as the MVP. Tully, you were talking in P's and B's. Wasn't sure if Aror would wind up with the Artio or the Athena, but here he is with the Bear Mom.
And the way they played it, even at the beginning of this laning phase, Clout didn't respect the damage between Cyclone and Aror. Izanami doing a lot of damage, even with her basic attacks. He can't body block it, so Geno's just walking away like, I can't help you, buddy.
moswal also put on a pretty good performance from the middle lane. And Aror, this is kind of what he does, man. He sets everybody up, but at the same time, he's able to provide his own front punches, which I think is so important to him and his team. And that's the identity, I think, of Splyce, is that their support is going to come packing a punch. And you can look at other teams, and I think that this is one of the beautiful things about Season 5 in Smite is that you can have a true support who only plays Kepri Geb, sits in the back and shields and revive, right? Or you can be Aror and just be ready to brawl. He's always down to bang, and that's what we get out of Splyce. That's their identity, and because of it, they find themselves above LG.
As good as Artio is offensively, the key of the pickup was actually to shut down weakened Serqet. Once that was locked in, it was a no-brainer. It was just a counter matchup in general. The question remained of like, did they want to put it in the soul lane or the guardian role? With the Izanami, there was a kill potential. They went for it, and they even got first blood in the first 30 seconds.